For a little over 2 years now, I have been living at this small house in northern Portugal with my partner Verity. Together we have been slowly renovating it, taming the garden and demolishing the bits we don't want. This summer we have some big plans to finally get our roof terrace finished and to start work on the area at the back of the house and convert the ground floor into a habitable space. Follow along to see how it goes. If you watched the previous video, you will have seen us lay this dimple matting on the flat roof of our outbuilding. It sits above a bitumen roof membrane and it's there to allow rainwater to flow freely under whatever roof covering goes on top. We've decided to have a decked area to the back of the roof, some paving stones along a pathway from the stairs to that deck, and gravel everywhere else. This allows us to have a proper area to use for seating, entertaining, or whatever we want to do up here, and it keeps costs down compared to tiling or decking the whole thing. This roof has already undergone a transformation. When we first moved to the property, the roof was covered with hundreds of these tijolo bricks and other bits and bobs. I spent a winter clearing it and hopefully this summer we will start using it as a rooftop terrace. Trying to flatten these sheets out. I don't think it'll matter too much because there'll be gravel on top and that should weigh it down. But just for peace of mind, I'm going to try and get rid of these creases, and I think I've got an idea. Okay, so I didn't manage to get rid of all of the creases, but hopefully the gravel on top will weigh it down enough. The next layer to add to the roof was this geotextile membrane. The point of this is to let water pass through, but stops dirt and debris, helping the roof drain properly. I'll unroll, you check them in line, and to go to the side. Pretty good to me, isn't it? The membrane came in a 2-meter wide roll, and to make it work effectively, we decided to sew each sheet together. To do so, we bought a handheld sewing machine used for closing up bags of grain to help out. We plan on using the excess membrane and the machine for other projects, so think it was a worthwhile investment. The sewing machine took a bit of time to get used to, but once we figured it out, it was relatively easy to use. With the geotextile laid, we started to move up the gravel that we're going to use around the edges and some of the central areas of the flat roof. We bought 3 tons of river gravel and each sack was 56 euros, so on a cost per square metre basis this was far cheaper than tiling or decking. Getting the gravel up to the roof meant lots of wheelbarrow loads and bucket runs up the stairs I built in an earlier video. It might be a cheap option, but it still involves a lot of manual labour. The point of using materials that were not fixed down was meant to mean that if a leak developed, I could quickly whip the coverings off and find the leak. But after moving all of this gravel on top, I don't think I'll be able to whip anything off in a hurry. Right in the middle. We focused on the edges first, laying the gravel around the perimeter of the roof. This was just to weigh down the membrane so it didn't blow away. At this stage we knew that the edges would have gravel, but didn't know exactly where we wanted it everywhere else.
The other one had a point, didn't it?
Yeah. That should be fine. When we got tired of moving gravel, we focused on another job, fencing this courtyard area at the front of our house. We borrowed some fencing tools from a neighbour to knock in these timber posts, hoping that it would go smoothly. But on this occasion, I was trying to bury this post into stone, so I had to think of a different way to do it. But I decided to come back to that first post later and get the other ones in position first. The reason I'm adding a fence here is to stop our dog from getting into the courtyard. We're planning on opening up the stone wall here to install some gates so we can actually drive onto the property. And as a temporary measure, this fence will be here until the gates in the outer stone wall are in place. This one won't go in the ground, into the bed. I thought it was all filled with soil, but there's some stones sticking out from the walls, so I can't actually get this one in. But that doesn't matter because I can get it tight up against this concrete post. Fix it in with some brackets, and this is where it will start. And that should be good enough. The fence isn't that straight, but that doesn't matter too much. With the posts in, it was time to lay the metal wire fencing panels. This is the same stuff that I used around the perimeter of the property, which is still going strong and our dog hasn't been able to get out, so I'm confident it will work here as well. This fencing was also added to the gate, so now Fort Knox is complete. For the pathway to our rooftop deck, we bought some big tiles. These tiles will sit on pedestals and take you from the top of the stairs to the timber deck on the far side of the outbuilding roof. By this time I had added a fair amount of gravel to the roof. We're aiming for a 3 to 5 centimetre or 2-inch thick covering wherever it's used up here.
The harder thing. Dan doesn't didn't have it the right angle. Did you do one up on your own? Huh? You do it on your own.
These tiles were pretty heavy and I probably shouldn't have lifted them on my own, but luckily my back held out. These tiles are going to sit on 25mm pedestals. At this point I was trying to see how it would work, measuring out where the pedestals would sit before moving the heavy tiles into place. These pedestals are 37 cents each, which is about a quarter of the price of adjustable pedestals. The height of these are fixed, but hopefully I'll be able to get rid of any wobble with some shims. If I was trying to butt the tiles up next to each other, adjustability would probably be needed, but I'm going to space them out so I should be able to get away with it.
I don't really want to step in the middle or jump. I think I'm going to add a pedestal into the middle, just take off the little fins. I think you should do that anyway when tiles are a certain size or a certain thickness or under a certain thickness. These are 20mm thick, which they say is the right thickness for pedestals, or at least the minimum thickness. Plan is to have these on pedestals all the way up here, and then when you get to this sort of area we'll have timber decking here, which is on its way, which will also be supported on the same pedestals, timber frame underneath it, and then the decking on top of that.
With two pedestals under the centre of the tile and one on each corner, it felt much stronger. To test out the final appearance, I pushed some gravel between the tiles and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The inside of the parapet wall will be painted, but we're still waiting on a delivery of paint.
Spacing is pretty much perfect for me.
After laying 8 tiles in total, the pathway was finished. Most of them will need some minor adjustments to make them completely level, but for now I'm pretty happy with them. After some back and forth, we have decided on how we're going to treat the outside face of this parapet wall. We plan on using timber cladding fixed to a metal frame with an aluminium capping piece along the top. To help reduce the amount of rainwater coming into contact with the stone walls, I'm going to add an aluminium trim with a drip edge. This will help prevent water from infiltrating to the inside space below, and to do this I'm going to create a concrete ledge for the drip edge to fix to. And to do that I decided to build a timber form or jig to sit on top of the walls, which will allow me to pour in concrete and create a consistent level around the entirety of the building. After some trial and error and some design tweaks, I managed to get something ready for testing. I went for a 5-degree fall and used some plastic to help prevent concrete from leaking out the bottom of the form. I also left some old exposed concrete for the new concrete to attach to. At least that's what I thought would happen. I mixed up some concrete and added the first mix to the form. I tried to level it off as best as I could and hope for the best. A day or two later, it was time to remove the form, and I was pretty happy with the results.
Perfect there. So it's a couple of days after I did the first of the, I don't know what to call them really, concrete, these bits up here. I did a second one, and what I've realised is I made a bit of a mistake. I sort of assumed that the top of this parapet wall would be perfectly level. It's pretty much level. Long story short, I need to check each time I add the jig that the formwork is level, because the first one on the left is a bit too low and is not level. But luckily what I can do is add the jig on again, add more concrete on top. I can level it out and make it level with the second one that I've done. Let's call it a concrete plinth. So I've partly done this section of the plinth, done it in two areas. The plan is to add formwork between the two and then fill that with concrete instead of moving this jig all down the wall and around. That'll take a long time. It's going to take a while anyway doing it this way, but hopefully I'll save a bit of time by doing the jig in 2 meter increments and then filling in between the two mini plinths that I make.
And after creating another form and filling between the two mini plinths, it was time to reveal the long plinth section. This will support the aluminium drip edge. The one shown in the video isn't the one I'm actually going to use, but it will work in the same way.
Pretty much perfect. Well, not perfect, but works.